Welcome, everyone, to the Data Depot. I'm your host, Jeffrey Dean, where every week we will take a deep dive into the world of sports using data and analytics to help better understand what's going on. Today, we're going to be looking at the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament. So we have four elite squads, Wisconsin, Texas, Washington, and Kentucky here in the Final Four, all having very stellar performances over the first 4 rounds in Omaha. So, in fact, this is a rather diverse field of teams. Over the last 10 years, only 18 different teams have made it to the Final Four. Texas, one of the squads here, they have the most Final Four appearances over the last 10 years at 6. We also see Wisconsin with 2. And Washington with 1 appearance over the last 10 years. As you can see, only 3 teams combined for 16 of the Final Four trips over the last 10 years. Title-winning performance, also very consolidated. So you see Stanford, which took a huge dip this last year. They did not. The Cardinals did not qualify for the women's tournament this year. They won the title in 2016, 18, and 19. Penn State, another team, they made an early exit to the Final Four representative from the region, Texas, in the second round. They won in 2010, 13, and 14. Nebraska, another big competitor, also lost to Texas in the Elite Eight. They won in 2015 and 17. That's just 3 teams that have won 8 of the last 10 titles. Texas, as we see there, with their win in 2012, they have 2 wins in their program history in 2012 and back in 1988. Washington, the other team that has the title win under its belt already, back in 2005. Kentucky and Wisconsin both looking for their first titles. Wisconsin has made it to the finals last year, where they lost to Stanford in the last tournament. In the last year, the tournament was canceled. 2 years ago, where they lost eventually to the eventual champion in Stanford. So bringing it back to the bracket, first we're going to look at this matchup over here, Wisconsin versus Texas. These are their tournament results thus far. Both teams playing 14 sets. In their last game match, Wisconsin went up against a very talented, Mary Wise's very talented Florida squad, and squeaked out a 5-set win. Let's see, and then for Texas, they've had very stellar performance in their first 3 matches. Penn State and Nebraska both forced them to 4 games. Did not prove to be much of a challenge for the Longhorns. Now, Wisconsin, the #1 overall seed in the tournament. Unlike basketball, only 16 of the teams are seeded, which makes historical comparison rather easy, given only 1 team is allotted each seed. So it's easy to compare seeding from the past. So we take a look at the Final Four appearances by seed. 3 seeds making the most appearances with 8, followed by 1 seeds with 7 appearances. This is all, again, over the last 10 years. Now, with 7 appearances, let's see what those looked like. So we had last year, Baylor versus Wisconsin, who's back again this year. Stanford versus #4 Brigham Young. And also Nebraska versus #4 Texas. So this is 3 historical 1 versus 4 Final Four matchups. Now let's see what this looked like for those #1 overall seeds. All of them, except for the eventual champion Stanford Cardinal in 2018, lost in their Final Four matchup. BYU, the lone 4 seed to lose over the last 10 years upon making it to the Final Four. Now, if we take a look at what the model says, my model is giving Texas a 64.2% chance to knock off the Wisconsin Badgers and move on to the final. Now coming back and let's look over there at this side of the bracket. Washington Huskies versus the Kentucky Wildcat. Very different paths to the Final Four for these 2 squads. Washington having played 15 sets versus Kentucky only playing 9, 15 being the max that a seeded team could have played, and 9 being the fewest. This is a change from previous years. The field shrunk from the normal 64 teams to 48 teams due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and how it affected play during the regular season. So, something to look out for. Has the increase in matches worn out this Husky squad, and will that prove to be a factor going forward? So, if we look back, so as I said, all of these going to 5 sets over here, all of those only taking 3 sets for the Wildcats to win. Kentucky has dominated this tournament so far. They've won by an average of 7.44 points each set with a point differential of plus 67. We see here how it's changed over time. In each of these matches, in this first match, it got closer with each subsequent set, but in both of these other sets, they started off rather close, ended up winning this one by about 16 points, and winning set 3 over there by about 10 in those second and third rounds. If we take a look back at Washington, how is this different? If you notice here at the bottoms of at their lowest point differentials, they've lost back-to-back sets in each of these 3 games. Here in their Elite Eight matchup against Pittsburgh, they lost their first and second matches, fought back to win 3 in a row and make it to the Final Four. They've only won their sets by an average of 1.46 points with a point differential of plus 22. Interestingly enough, we look at their 5th matches, of which they have 3 to advance to the next round. They are plus 12. So just about 50.5% of their plus minus has come from those 5 sets, 12 out of their plus 22. So now moving on, there have been 3 teams to make it to the Final Four having not lost a set. Again, as I said, this year it's a little bit different. Teams have only played 3 rounds to get to the Final Four, whereas in previous years they have played 4. So Wisconsin in 2019, Nebraska in 2018, and California in 2010 all played 12 matches to make it to the Final Four. So now if we look at how this went for each of those teams. So in 2019, Wisconsin beat Baylor 3-1 to make it to the Final Four, to make it to the championship game. In 2018, Nebraska a 3-2 win over Illinois to make it to the championship game. And back in 2010, this is all again in the last 10 years. They swept USC to stay perfect, making it to the Final Four. However, interesting note that these teams, upon making it to the finals, none of them won the national title. So it will be interesting to see whether Kentucky follows in this historical precedent. Now taking a look at what the model says. The model does like Kentucky making it to the finals. They have them at a 55.3% probability to make the finals. Washington only 44.7%. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Now we'll take a step back and look at the odds for all 4 teams. Texas with the best odds per the model to make to win the championship at 37.2%, followed not too far behind by Kentucky at 33.5% chance to take the title home back to Lexington. Wisconsin, the number 1 overall team, only given a 14.7% chance by the model to win the title, and Washington bringing up the rear, only 0.1% chance behind Wisconsin at 14.6% chance to take home the title. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. Again, thank you for watching. This has been the Data Depot with Jeffrey Dean. Tune in next week to see more analytics.